Hi, welcome to IoT North. This is a special edition for Leeds Digital. So, yeah, technical issues tonight. We've got the gremlins, so this is going to be an interesting one for sure. Sorry about that. So, hi, welcome to IoT North. I'm Paul Wheels, founder of IoT. Today we're getting joined by Rob Risany, Vibhu, Bithar, and my good friend John Staveley, the lifesaver, as always. Have you lost without this guy? Today we're going to be discussing the impacts over the past 18 months with IoT and AI technologies, and also discussing ideation to inception. Rob and Vibhu are both from Intel, who I've also recently joined as well, for full disclosure. So we're just going to have a good open discussion about this. So first I'll bring in Rob. Hi, Rob. How are you doing?
Doing great, Paul. Thanks for having me here. I've been enjoying the show for a while, and glad to be on.
Brilliant. Hey, we've got people there chatting with us already. Do make any comments, suggestions, feedback on anything we talk about today. If you've got any questions in regards to IoT and AI and such like as well, please do reach out. So hi, Ollie. Hi, Steve. And my good friend, John, who's sat in the waiting room. So as he says, do feel free to join. Rob, you've had quite a good career so far in regards to IoT, and I'm sure you're going to have a long one ahead of you as well. I'll correct what I've just said there. Would you like to give everybody?
Hope, right?
I mean, after the calls we've had over the past couple of weeks, I'm quite sure you will. Very insightful. Would you like to just share with everybody your career path and your experience?
Sure, happy to. So I've been in the integrated systems business for a long time. You went back in the early days of laying all the fiber that turned into what we know as the internet right now. I guess I was there with Al Gore when he invented the internet. That's a joke. Clearly, the changes that have happened as we've connected the world has been the explosion of data. And it started off, of course, with figuring out how we were going to just start to get data off of cell phones. And then we started thinking about what would it mean to do streaming. And then we started to connect different kinds of devices. And in my path, working for 10 years at IBM in advanced analytics, working in the IoT space in hardware, as well as the software space, it's always been focused on, frankly, how do you quickly create industry value based solutions? And whether you're turning on analytics on a chiller to take advantage of retiring workforces, or you're dealing with creating new applications for end users. The fact is that the data is only as good as the analytics you apply to it, and that's been the heart of my journey certainly in the last few years.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much, Rob. We've got our good friend Vibhu, who was on with us earlier this year, showing us a couple of little projects he was working on using vision as a sensor. Hi, Vibhu. How are you doing?
Doing good. How are you guys? Nice to see you guys again.
We've got David T from Bellina saying hi from Phoenix. Hi, David. Vibhu, would you like to give a little bit of intro yourself and a little bit? You've got a great career behind you and ahead of you as well. Would you like to share with everybody on that?
Yeah, with good mentors and good friends like you, yes, it's always fun. So my journey started back in the days when I was with Deloitte. I spent 10 years there doing system integrations from any legacy system to more advanced systems, and then spent 3 years doing IoT and as Rob said, climbing up the crane to set RFID antennas on like a 20-foot ceiling, or it was a fun project doing asset tracking. But then I joined AWS as a partner solution architect. Spent 2 years with one year with AWS and 1 year with Lab 126, working on emerging products. And then Intel, because I was getting interested in vision as a sensor in the field of IoT, and learned a lot in this field. And I have not only imagined products, but now I'm able to build products and show it to you guys that what a vision as a sensor can do for you.
That's great. I would admit to not knowing a lot about the subject, but as usual, I will take a developer's perspective and ask what the developer journey is going to be like. So I'm very interested to hear from both of you.
Yeah, absolutely, John. It's interesting when we started to think about this whole topic. It's our backgrounds, while having different roles. What Vibhu and I have definitely had in common here is seeing the evolution of these technologies and the developer experience that's changed over the last years.
But I think that leads great onto sort of one of the first questions I want to ask you, Rob, is how have you seen the market change in the past 18 months? You know, that we've gone through an awful lot across the world with the pandemic and the impact. And, you know, things seem to have really accelerated in certain areas, especially the adoption of technology and use of technology. What have you seen?
Well, it's interesting. In the last 18 months, we've obviously had all the focus on what's gone on with COVID. And huge amounts of organizations focused first off on back to work concepts, the influx of people trying to check temperatures in unique ways. And that's, I think, where something that had actually been going on before that started to jump into the forefront. And that's the application of vision systems. We've been capturing video for security for a long time. Whether that's, you're walking into your retail store and the little eyeball camera is making sure you don't steal a cup of coffee or grab a candy bar, all the way to, the experiences we've had when we walk through airports, which is, started all the way, it really started to extend itself after 2001. What's changed though in the last 18 months, when all of a sudden people were thrown into this remote work mode, which some of us have been doing for 20 years. What's new now is that the developer is, in some ways, free to do development. So the good developers have accelerated their innovation pace, where I'll say the developers that aren't as strong probably have struggled more. So I'd say what we've seen is the pace has increased, and the focus on leading technologies, specifically taking advantage of new data that really becomes available in both a health conscious, safety conscious, but definitely visual centered world. That's one of the key things a couple key things I'd call out, Paul.
You see a lot of new devices coming into the market now. You've got the NVIDIA Jetson Nano and the Azure Percept coming out. Why is this? Is this like a case of like a technology whose time has come, or has something changed in the market?
That's a really interesting observation. Obviously, I'm at Intel now, but in my years of work at IBM, in the hardware industry and in other software businesses, we saw the rise of GPU acceleration being applied to machine learning and deep learning situations for a few years ahead of now. What's definitely accelerated, however, is the prevalence of edge technology. Okay, so when we think about the deployment of solutions, we start to think about it's not good enough just to expect us to dump everything on the cloud. And that's one of the things that's also changed for the developer. We start to have to think about the topography of a deployed solution being, it's not just about pump the data into the cloud and have everything happen. Now we actually have to make decisions on where's the best place for that compute to live. And that's one of the reasons you start to see things like GPUs pushed out to the edge. That's also why you're starting to see more intensive software investment from companies like Intel looking at ways to do high-speed inference on the edge.
Yeah, and just to add to that, to Rob's point, what I have seen in the past, what every company, cloud or edge, everybody, including what they're trying to do is convert these computer vision theories from PhD thesis to actual products that people can use every day. And you will see more things like Azure Percept or OpenCV's OakD or OakD Live Lite and things like that, because now everybody understands how computer vision can be used, but in an easy way is the answer. These products will show you that point a camera towards a thing, train it, and now you can detect it and you can implement it into your daily life. So that's what I'm seeing is changing every day.
So I think that leads on nicely, Vibhu, to the sort of, there's loads of ideas out there in IoT, and we get that sort of POC thing coming through, and it's one of those very very heavily used terms in the world of let's do POC, but so many of them die. And making that move from quickly and effectively from ideation to inception, as the title of the show is. What's your thoughts on there? Do you think there's a progression that's happened here where we learn fast, kill quick, or pivots?
Yes, I think what Intel and many other companies have done is to build a lot of foundational products. We call it OpenVINO to accelerate inference on Intel hardware. OpenVINO is a SDK library available. But then we also realized that to use it, you need to do a lot. So why not serve it in a way that you can use it in simple samples or build pipelines from working with the cloud providers like Azure or AWS. And on top of that, also build products that encapsulates everything. So basically, if it's a buffet and there is something for all, if you just want to eat and make your own food, we have foundational pieces. But if you want to point and shoot, right, like there are cameras where you have to cover your head and go inside the box, the pinhole cameras back in the days, versus and develop your own films. I've done that in a dark room. It was pretty fun, not knowing where your hands are. To also on the other side where you're point and shoot, and that revolutionized the whole photography industry, right? Where people can just take like I have seen these Kodak cameras, which are in a box, like a cardboard box, and everybody give them to a marriage party or the people attending, and they can shoot pictures, right? So that's where we are going right now. Everybody has a way to express their creativity, not just with the raw material, which it will take a lot of time to cook, but with something which is out of the box, point and click, and you get what you want.
Yeah. Funny enough, we've just had a question here. So, Dick Wallace, hi Dick, how are you doing? Ex-UK Army General on news today. Should just in time be replaced by just in case in logistics, meaning much more use of AI, ML, DL? Is this realistic and possible? How about the cost?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think it does get to the heart of also the thing that's changing a little bit now in terms of the ideation to inception to deployment cycle. And that's realistic and possible has got the distance to that is, I'd say, much shorter. So the reality right now is a lot of industry, whether it's logistics, whether it's public safety, whether it's retail, are realizing that, the aspect of, let's take logistics. We've got thousands and thousands of containers that can't be moved. There's right now 62 container ships sitting outside the port of Los Angeles. And we're stuck because we don't have enough workers to unload things, okay? There are ways to use AI technology and vision systems to automate aspects of these processes, from inspecting bills of lading, to doing security inspections, to figuring out, well, shoot, did I stick the container I needed in the wrong part of the port? These are all real issues that organizations are dealing with. And the interesting thing, going right to what Vibhu was saying, you don't have to start from scratch. I don't need to begin the journey with, hey, I'm just doing some design thinking. I have, a bunch of yellow sticky notes up on the wall, and now I need to go get a $10 million POC budget. That's just not how it works anymore. If you can go walk around with a GoPro on video around a port, if you have the security clearance to do so, you can start training models effectively super fast. And I would go right back to what I used to say in the early days of deployed predictive modeling. Presume the analytics will recognize what you want it to recognize, and will be able to infer fast enough to make a decision. Now the real question comes down to, you're the developer. What decision do you want to make? And that's the power that's now, I think, been unleashed at this point. So yeah, is it just in time? Is it just in case? I think the time is now, and the time is needed.
Oh, that's great. But why? We've been able to do image recognition for a long time, in the cloud on large machines. What is it about the use cases on the edge that you're seeing coming through that has driven this change in the market?
Well, I'll comment from the change in the market, and then maybe Vibhu, you can comment from the point of view of what's changed in the developer world. But from a market standpoint, just very bluntly, one, I think the compute costs have gotten to the point where it doesn't cost us as much to deploy a system at scale out to the edge. I'm working on a project right now in the retail space where we're refreshing existing point of sale technologies with just enough compute power that now what they can actually do is plug into existing security cameras and infer things right on the edge. So we're getting to the point where the edge-based compute sitting on a core CPU can be used for multiple kinds of projects. Combine the technology maturity, combine that with the fact, and I don't mean the camera maturity, because in the end, half the data that's coming off into these vision systems are existing camera infrastructure. You don't need to start from scratch with cameras. You can use your existing infrastructure. But now what's also happening is we've got compelling market issues that are making people think differently. Retailers aren't finding enough employees. They feel like they're being run out of business by online shopping. We don't have enough truck drivers. We're thinking about autonomous vehicles. We don't have enough people to unload ports. There are compelling industry issues which are making us think about how to take compute and push it on the edge to augment the available humans.
Yeah, and so on the other aspect of it is developing these solutions, right? And when we look into the market, we always see companies saying, "Oh, there are not enough data scientists to train our models." Well, that is true because data science it's a tough field and it takes a lot of time and energy in a specific field to develop your skill set. But not every model needs to be created from scratch, and that's what we are seeing in the market because you can fine tune a model. There are very good baseline models that can detect lines, edge shapes, and contours of object, and then it just needs to know what I'm looking for, and that's where fine tuning comes into picture. We have built solutions with Azure where it's all packaged containerized solution where it's developed as if you are on a shop floor and you want to detect something on a conveyor belt. How would you do that? Would you build a model that can detect a green capsicum? No, you should not do that. You detect a capsicum and then you detect whether it's green or yellow to detect whether it's ripe or not and things like that. So you can systematize all these models together. So you train a model within one application as it's going through the conveyor belt. Anybody can train that model. You just have to know how to draw a bounding box around an object and keep doing that till you have enough confidence in detecting the object, and then cascade models together. We have OpenVINO model server where you can plug multiple models together in line to detect certain things. Now, what's the end product? Now, I don't expect people to write the config files in the backend if they are working on the factory floor. They have the business knowledge. So we give them the tool where they start with existing camera feed, draw bounding box around the objects, put two different types of color detection model and object detection model side by side, say, okay, I want to detect this object and its color. And when it detects it, do something. All this in one open source project that you can download and install. Why? Because my use case, if I've given it to a data scientist, would be he'll try to create one model for everything. Heavy model might not be able to deploy scale. He doesn't know about RTSP feeds, how they work, how to send data to the cloud. We have removed everything in between. You deploy the solution, you are able to take it to your factory or your retail store, count people, do whatever you want to do, your use case in your hand, and you can do it. So that's the approach now developers are taking because use cases are exploding. Somebody wants to use it in retail stores, somebody wants to put it in docks. Not There are not enough people, so we have to bring the solutions to the market which are generic enough, but you can build whatever you want on top of it without knowing the behind the scenes.
Vibhu, I think you hit an important point in that at that front end part of the story, you don't have to be a master of AI and know every nuance of the math that's in a particular deep learning, approach. It's fascinating. You can grab a book and read about it, but to start the process of moving the needle on a particular use case it's a first step in a journey. I think the other interesting thing that is important here about the types of developer work that we see here is, remember, it's not just about, can I build a classification model to recognize a fish in somebody's pond and whether it's hungry, or is it a red car getting stolen today? That's one kind of approach. If I'm going to build an application that solves a problem, I don't need to know anything about machine vision and algorithms. It has to do with a lot of things where, there's kids will be sitting on the drive, to college, and they'll just code up an app. Coding is part of every engineering class there is now. It doesn't matter whether you're an aerospace engineer, mechanical, whatever. Coding is a baseline almost requirement. And I think that's opening up an opportunity for people that don't think they're able to do AI programming to actually build AI powered applications. And those are two different things.
Do you think we're moving into a world where, the progression from websites, as you mentioned earlier, Rob, about the early days of the internet, where you got the progression to companies making tools that made it easier for people with more design skills rather than coding skills to start to build websites like WordPress and GoDaddy. That, as you've both mentioned, that there's that skill shortage and knowledge base that actually we can start to create the tools that do the magic in the background to enable people who are more subject experts to deliver that.
It's an interesting question. I think you talk development suite, evolutions. Different people learn in different ways. Some people, they want to start with hello world. And some people would rather start with, hey, I've got to solve this problem, and I'll pull whatever tools I can, open source, commercial, whatever, to do it, because that's what I need to do. There's a little bit of a hacker's mentality, I think, that's gotten itself really embedded into this analytic applications business. And I think that's a healthy thing. The IoT and analytics business intrinsically linked by people that think around the corners of the ways that traditional problems are dealt with. And so therefore, yeah, I think that's why you see the first explosion in machine vision be the platforms that allow you to do a zero code, machine vision model. Now, once you have it, what are you going to do? Well, that's a different topic. Vibhu, I'd be interested in your point of view, what actually, from a developer experience, do you think people really want today?
Yeah, I think as hacker mentality, right? They say that, do I have to really redesign the wheel? Well, no. But can I start building a car, an electric car that solves a problem, right? So motors are available, everything is available. Can you give it to me in a way I can consume? I can consume to start noticing the nuances of it, as well as the positive sides of it, what I can build out of the box. And that, if that is significant enough that it can solve my baseline condition, I will go deeper. I will hit the actual SDK that's used behind the scenes and try to take it apart, ask for more, or try to use it in a different way. But the time and investment a developer is putting these days into any of these tools start with, can I achieve something basic? And if I cannot do that and I have to do 10 million things before I reach there, they already lose interest because there are 10,000 other things out there that is attracting their attention.
John, I was just trying to unmute you there, but it won't let me.
I'm unmuted.
There you go. Do you have anything to contribute there from your experience, being a hardcore developer yourself?
I just observed that a no-code solution sounds like a threat to my day rate. So I look forward to seeing what they're offering, really. And I'd have a lot more comments after I'd seen it.
But if you, I mean, through your years of development, you must have seen tools like these come through where it actually makes part of the job and development easier, so you can actually do the more evolved side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of the easy data science training image recognition tools that have starting to come through, where you just provide a list of objects and then you just mark it up and tag things that are in the image, and then it learns the model that way, and then you just deploy a model as an edge module to your IoT device. So I've seen those kind of solutions come through. I've not seen anything no code or low code yet. You still need to see have a developer sitting there and processing the information somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, Vibhu, I was just going to say we've got 5 minutes left of the show, so anybody who's watching the show, if you'd like to ask us any questions, please do fire them through in the comments, and we'll get them answered live. Excuse me. Sorry, Vibhu, back to you.
Oh, I was just saying that, developers, we are getting so many different use cases that we need to implement, that starting on every use case from scratch is not possible or not advised right at now, right? Inheritance, C++ concept that we have learned so far is getting very famous now. Like you get platforms that can do the basic stuff, and then you evolve them into, you inherit the features of that into your application and keep building a higher level of abstraction or more feature rich applications based on that. And that's what I'm seeing in computer vision field and AI ML overall. That's where developers are still required, because they have this thought process behind it, how to stitch things together, how to bring different aspects of, like, from RTSP feeds to storing the data to analyzing it, everything. Like, everybody looks to me these days and they look like full stack developers, right? Because they have to deal with the hardware on the edge, as well as they have to deal with the cloud and present the information in one or the other.
Yeah, it's interesting. The question, I think, is that we're going to quickly get into. I think John brings up a bit of are we building platforms or applications? And the IDE for the developer is inherently a development platform so that somebody can create things. And usually what happens in these developments, if you look at the hype cycles for all the different kinds of analytic tools that have evolved, business intelligence, OLAP, statistical platforms. You brought up website design, Paul. All of these kinds of things always started off with, well, let's build a platform because there aren't enough people that know this domain. What's very interesting that's different now, because of the speed of innovation and the urgency in the market, is people are they're skipping the platform step. They're going to, open source is my platform. I have my tools. I know how I can get things from GitHub. People, there's huge amounts of code that's being donated by large organizations, including Intel. And in that context, then they jump to the application for an outcome. And that ends up always being the domain of, it's not just about, hey, are you a data scientist? Are you a UI designer? In the end, being a developer is about having a vision for the application and being able to drive towards that end. Whether that application has a front end with a fancy mobile phone interface, or it's a piece of back end code that can process millions of data points, that's developer. The need for developers ain't going away. It's definitely evolving to take into account the speed at which we need outcomes from those developers.
Okay, so we got 1 minute left. I'm going to ask the question: what tools would you recommend to getting started with the ideation that will help you get to inception? Vibhu, to you first.
Sure. There are many tools that I would recommend. I would start with basic OpenVINO SDK, learn more about it. But to make life easier, to get you guys started faster, we have OpenVINO integration with TensorFlow, where you can just use your TensorFlow models that you currently have. And with just 3 more steps, you can install it. We can share the details after as part of this. And then there are more things like cloud to edge pipeline with AWS using Greengrass and SageMaker. You can train your models and then deploy it onto the edge with just one click. So that's another thing. And the last one I would like to recommend, if you don't want to go that route of training yourself, setting up CVAT like computer annotation tool, you can just use Azure's a Vision on Edge application, where it comes with everything you need to train and deploy your models and interpret the results back onto the live stream using the Azure open source project that we have worked, and which uses OpenVINO model server in the backend with cascading capabilities where you can stitch different models together. Some models are pre-trained and available in Intel OpenZoo. You can bring them in, or you can train your new model on your new objects using custom vision. So that capability is very good in terms of not just from the perspective of training, but also from deployment at large scales, because it uses tried and tested services that are part of Azure platform.
Yeah, brilliant. I think the one tool I'll do, because about a minute over now, is that there are great platforms as well of getting things pushed out, like Belina, free to use, get familiar with, and try it out. Really great tool that I've had a little tinker with in the past. And funny enough, that leads nicely onto that we will have David speaking at the upcoming show on the 5th of October, which is next Tuesday. So we've got David Tischler from Belina talk about their platform and toolkit. Do check that out. David, absolutely great. We've had him on the show a couple of times past. Very animated guy and great to chat with. And we also have Stephen Tulip from ACT, the App Association. They're asking, are your IoT innovations at risk with standard essential patents? So that'd be quite an interesting talk as well. So it'll be about an hour-long show, that one. I think that leads us on to say thank you very much, guys, for sharing your insight. Sorry for the technical issues that we've had. It seems EE's 5G has finally saved the day for me, and I'm running off my phone to get this connection through today. So, John, as always, mate, lifesaver, thanks very much for jumping in just as everything crashed. Vibhu, Rob, thanks very much. Look forward to catching up with you over the coming weeks. And on that, thanks very much for everybody attending. Thanks for your questions and saying hi. And as I said, don't forget to join us next week for the show with Belina and ACT.
Okay.